Welcome to Bless Them Boys, a podcast that even though it is not November 1st, today is All Saints Day. I am not joined by my co-host, Brandon the Cowboys fan. He is on assignment today. However, I have the distinct pleasure to be joined by one of the hardest working men in the show business. He is the host of Locked On Saints podcast. He is a beat writer for LouisianaSports.net. He also covers the Saints for WWL TV and a whole slew of other things. He's also the star of the 2025 schedule release for the New Orleans Saints. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Ross Jackson. Ross, thank you so much for your time tonight. I know it's a busy time for you, busy time for a lot of folks, so definitely appreciate the time.
Oh, of course, man. Very glad to be here with you. I will ask for some excusings throughout just because I'm a little bit under the weather here today, coming out of the Mardi Gras funk. But I'm glad to be here with you, man. You're somebody that I've always loved interacting with on the Twitter sphere, and now I get the opportunity to actually talk to you. This is great for me. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I do appreciate it. So we're going to get into some Saints talk. We'll obviously do some Combine talk with that coming up tomorrow. I guess it's kind of started already, but the workouts and stuff start tomorrow. But let's start here first. So I've been a fan of your content for a while now. I know that you were a fan of the Saints prior to actually covering them professionally. So you kind of want to walk through that and just kind of where that fandom started.
Yeah. I mean, look, when you're born in New Orleans, you're kind of born black and gold in a way. You know what I mean? And so I grew up watching the team, and so I have a vast appreciation and connection in terms of what it means to be a Saints fan and why it's important to fans in a way that's unique beyond the rest of professional sports. I've said it 1,000 times on Locked On Saints, and I'll continue to say it for another 1,000 and beyond. I think that the Saints and New Orleans have a stronger connection than any other professional sports fan base and their team in existence. I just think that what we all have experienced as New Orleanians, people of the Gulf Coast, people who were fans of the team and people who became fans of the team, that, there's just not a lot of examples like what we have experienced and what the team has experienced in other markets, in other places, in other cities, in other countries. And so I really think that the Saints stand alone in that. And so, I gathered a really strong appreciation for all of it. And then when I got the opportunity to start covering a team professionally, I knew two things. I knew, first of all, that I wanted to be able to have a voice back at home within my community. And that was very important to me on a more selfish personal level. And then on an exterior level, I understood how important it was to be a fan of this team and what it meant. And so I wanted to be able to contribute to that by giving people insight, giving people news, giving people updates, helping people understand the game a little bit more, just trying to make it a little bit better every day to be a Saints fan. So those are my two kind of bottom line goals in the midst of all of it. And thankfully was able to make it happen with the help of some wonderful people, both here locally and beyond. And so I couldn't be more grateful than to have this opportunity.
Well, I'll speak as Paul, the Saints fan. You have definitely made it a joy to be a Saints fan. I definitely have appreciated your content over the last couple of years since following you. So let me ask this: so, growing up Saints fan, do you have a favorite Saint of all time? If you had to pick one,
it's not one that anyone ever expects, but the player that made me fall in love with the position that I adore when it comes to the game of football was Sammy Knight. And the safety role is one of my favorite roles in football. I have a high appreciation for a lot of different things. When I played football, I was a wide receiver and a safety. You had to play two ways. And so,
of course,
and so Sammy Knight was the guy. So much so that by the time that I turned like 22, my hair started falling out. And so like he was the guy for me that not only kind of helped me understand what I was watching at a more intricate level, because I was so honed in on where's Sammy, where's 29, where's 29. And then so I fell in love with that. But then I also kind of that's what led to me understanding things like defensive systems and having a desire to learn more about schemes and why he does what he does and why it's so different than anybody else out on the field. Like Sammy Knight was the guy for me.
Yeah, I definitely remember Sammy. He was definitely one of the first Saints that I was like, oh, he's good. Like, like he,
right.
like other teams might like him, other teams might want him. Like normally growing up, I think the first Saint for me was probably Mario Bates, the running back.
Sure.
From back in the day is like, it's the guy. I'll put it this way. When you played Madden and you try to get all the good players on your team, you'd keep Sammy Knight or you keep, Mario Bates or whoever. And my co-host, Brandon, will appreciate that because one of his favorite players of all time is a safety, and that's Darren Woodson.
Darren Woodson has to be. Yeah. It's got
he's
he's a Cowboys guy, so
he's been shouting from the mountaintop trying to get Darren in the Hall of Fame, and I personally agree as well.
Yeah,
but so with that, let me ask this question. So we do a gimmick on the show at the beginning of every show, patron Saint / Cowboy. Mm-hmm. Do you have, and if you can't come up with one, it's fine, but do you have a Saint / Cowboy that comes to mind that you, that's a favorite of yours, I guess?
Saint / Cowboy. So they have to be, so they will have had to have been both throughout their career, or it could
correct.
Be,
so for example, like Andy Dalton is
Andy
one.
I'm trying to think about others. Oh no, that was against the Cowboys. I was going to say C.J. Spiller, but that was something he did against the Cowboys. Sorry,
I know where you were going. I'll give you another name. The one that Brandon and I kind of bonded over was Leroy Glover.
That's exactly who I was. It's where I was going next. It's like Leroy Glover is probably the guy in that category.
He was another guy kind of in that Sammy Knight vein where it's like, oh, this guy's really good. Like he's, like he was. If it wasn't for a guy named Ray Lewis, Leroy Glover would have been Defensive Player of the Year in what was that, 2000 or 2000?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, back in the day. So, so always fun to talk that kind of stuff. So let's get into, I guess, current state. So I want to start here, kind of a bigger picture for the Saints, and then we'll get into some combine stuff too. So I feel like we're experiencing kind of a tale of two off seasons. So at this time last year, a lot of things in the air. I mean, a lot of a lot of stuff going on. Kellen Moore was 2 weeks into the job, maybe even less than that. They're at the combine. Derek Carr is still not retired. He's doing the shimmy. He's doing that whole thing. But now fast forward to this offseason, it feels like, okay, Kellen Moore hire seems like it was a good. I think on your the Saints squad, is it Saints squad? Is that the title?
Yep.
Yeah, that you host with John Hendricks and Lance Moore and Dylan. Yep. You guys were raving about it being kind of an A+ hire, which I can't disagree with. Based on the results of the season,
right?
And then Tyler Shuck, obviously. So I guess how would you kind of talk about the contrast between where we are now and where we were, 12 months ago? Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that every Saints fan will find unfortunate is that Derek Carr is still in the news, and that there's not a lot that we can do that fans are going to be able to do about that. But this time it's because he could potentially get offloaded. Like I can tell you right now that a lot of the whispers in Indianapolis are continuing to be around the idea that he is serious about unretiring and returning to the game if the right opportunity presents itself. But outside of that, I think the contrast is massively different because now you're coming out of an offseason where it was nothing but question marks, right? Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's the head coach? Who's the defensive coordinator? Who's the coaching? What's the coaching staff look like? So many other those questions. And now everything is about, okay, how do you build around the success that they started to have towards the end of the season? And so now it's become less about looking to the future because you're trying to find answers and more about fans being able to look to the future because they seem excited about the future. And I think for me, that's the biggest kind of contrast or difference from the 2025 February and the 2026 or the February of 2026.
Right. Yeah. And a big part of that obviously is Tyler Shuck, as we mentioned. Started with the last 9 games of last season, looked all the bit definitely worthy of the number 40 pick overall in the draft. here's my concern, and then I'll let you take it from there. So, we've seen this before with quarterbacks going into year two. There's a lot of smart defensive coordinators in the NFL. They get tape on a guy. They have a whole offseason to look at that. And obviously Kellen Moore now we've got a whole season of his play calling style. So how do I phrase this? Like what can, as Saints fans looking forward to 2026, is there concern of a sophomore slump, I guess, for Shough and for Moore too, I guess.
Yeah. I think there's probably that concern. The thing that I'll say is that every defense's objective is to catch up to the opposing offense. And so there's always going to be the chess match of the back and forth. There are going to be things that Tyler Shough did extremely well in those 9 games, 5 wins, 3 comeback drives, 2 fourth quarter comebacks, all that, game-winning drives, and fourth quarter comebacks. There's going to be things from that aren't going to work in 2026. And so the question is, what does he bring in addition, now that he's had a year to settle into the system, now that he'll have a full off season to settle into the system, knowing that he's a starter, no competition, very little splitting of reps, all these other things outside of, like, you don't want him to throw his arm out during, by giving him every rep in training camp, but he'll still dominate the snaps, dominate the opportunities. And so I think that the next thing would be, okay, how do you evolve your game? And we actually saw Tyler Shough do a very good job of that. Tyler Shough, oftentimes when he went into a game and he struggled at something or something didn't go well, the next game he kind of had it fixed. He is a quick study in that way. He's incredibly hard on himself in that way. And so I think that that's going to be that kind of next piece. It's also one of the reasons why you work on the protection unit in front of him and you work on getting weapons around him, because then it makes your offense a little bit less predictable, a little bit harder to catch up with, and all those other things. The cat and mouse game of NFL defenses versus NFL offenses is going to happen, and there are going to be games in which the defenses are going to get the best of Tyler Shough. There are going to be games where the defenses get the best of Kellen Moore, just like there are going to be games in which offenses get the best out of Brandon Staley. It's going to happen. Right. The big question is, does it happen over the course of the entire season? Does it happen over the course of an elongated stretch, or are you able to respond? And so I think that that's one of the things that is kind of like the plus and minus of the hype around both Tyler Shough and Kellen Moore right now, is that it's going to mean that once things don't go well for a little bit, there's going to be a tumble, if you will, from that. But also, it's going to mean a quick rebound if they rebound in terms of the belief. Right. So, it's just part of the game.
Yeah, and we'll get to those supporting pieces that you mentioned. I do want to touch on that here in a little bit. But real quick, going back to, so obviously the Derek Carr situation, I think Jordan Schultz tweeted out a couple hours ago that, looks like he's coming out of retirement. I do find it interesting that one of the teams being thrown around is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings do come to New Orleans next year for what that's worth. So something to potentially look forward to. Real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on Derek Carr. We've probably spent too much time already. But compensation-wise, what do we think the Saints could get out of that? I mean, I don't think they're going to hold him for ransom, but like what do we think? 4th, 5th round, something of that nature?
I'd imagine or maybe a pair of day 3 picks. I don't think it's going to be too much. They don't have a lot of leverage to ask for much, right? Like if he comes out of retirement, it's not like they're going to be like, well, but we'll keep him. You know what I mean? Like the team's not going to do it. There's no future for him here in New Orleans. And he's also, I mean, like the NFL will label him damaged goods until the team that lands him no longer labels him damaged goods, right? Like it's part of the negotiation. Hey, he had a season-ending shoulder injury. You're not going to overpay for that, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that that's probably the most that you're looking for. And look, those day 3 picks could be in 2026. They could be in 2027. But in any case, the Saints could be the benefactor of his return.
Well, that was going to be my question. Do you, in your opinion, do you think this gets resolved pre-draft, or is it something that maybe even gets pushed out to? Good
question. I could see a world in which either of those happen. I think for Derek Carr, he'd probably prefer it to be pre-draft, because then that would mean that some team has committed to him before the draft. But I could also see the value of it happening after the draft, and then it becomes you didn't land a quarterback. Here's the player that could help you, kind of a thing. In which case the Saints might actually gather a little bit more leverage in that situation, because you're talking about future draft capital, which is valued at a lesser rate than this year's draft capital. And you're putting on the market. You went through free agency, didn't get anybody. You went to the draft, didn't get anybody. Here's your only hope. You know what I mean? So like you could kind of play it that way. I do think salary cap wise, just because of what it means for that brief moment that Derek Carr's activated off of the reserve, retired reserve list, that it's easy. Yeah, that it's easier to do it before the new league year begins, because it doesn't matter if you shoot up over the salary cap for that brief moment in time. But I also think that it's such a brief moment in time that would happen that it probably wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, and you actually touched on something I also wanted to ask you about. I know you had a video about this, and you've written about this for LouisianaSports.net. So the salary cap thing, Saints obviously are always, in the gumbo, as it were, to use that phrase. So this report that came out of the Combine a couple of days ago about the Saints have to spend, I think it's $50 million to reach
They're among the teams. They're among the teams that are expected to have to spend at least $50 million. Is kind of
at least 50. But that 50 can include restructures, can include other, it's not just going out and sign new players for.
Yeah. It would include re-signings and extensions, but not restructures.
Oh, re-signings. Okay, sorry. Yeah, re-signings. Okay, but you brought up the Carr thing. So obviously, once Carr gets activated, then his money comes back on the books, and then now they have to, work that out with whatever team decides to.
It would honestly, because it would be money not earned yet, so it would honestly just move. It would just move with him wherever he was traded, and so because that would not factor into that cash $50 million floor thing. That wouldn't factor into that,
because the $30 million that he basically gave back last year, that's no backsies there. Like he can't.
Right. Yes. No trade. No givesies, backsies. None of that.
Yeah. No backsies.
That's done. Mm-hmm.
I didn't think so, but I just, also, and real quick, I know we'll get to the rest of the offense here in a second, but Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
Do we feel like he might get moved this offseason, or is this a situation where look, we got a good backup here with Rattler. We're going to keep him.
I think the team would like to keep him. But, if he wants to go and look for another opportunity, I don't think anybody's going to stand in his way. I think there's two quarterbacks to watch in that conversation. It's Spencer Rattler and it's Bears quarterback Tyson Bagent. Both of those guys are the quarterbacks that maybe are the backups that aren't hitting free agency, that there's some conversation about with a potential, trade or something like that could potentially happen. But I think the Saints would like to keep him. It is incredibly valuable to have a backup quarterback that started in your system before. And it doesn't matter how many games he's won or didn't win or whatever. None of that's important. What matters is that he knows the system, and he is, I'll say this, by all accounts, that quarterback room was tight knit in terms of him, Tyler Shuck, Hunter Deckers, and Jake Haener. And, Deckers has gone to the UFL. There's a chance that he returns after the spring season. Jake Haener's in Kansas City. And so keeping a guy like Spencer Rattler around, I think, is beneficial for, amongst all things. But I genuinely think that, Spencer Rattler can be one of the, top 32 to 37 quarterbacks in the NFL with a chance to hit the field in 2026 if he ends up in a different situation.
Yeah, I saw, I forget who published the article, but basically there was one shocking move for every team, these kind of articles.
Oh yeah, those things. Yeah.
It was the Rams trading for Spencer Rattler, and I was like,
oh man, I mean,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he and Matthew Stafford are comparable guys, but giving him a veteran like that to learn from, there's always going to be value in there. And remember, the backup to Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles used to be, before it was Baker Mayfield, used to be Bryce Perkins, and he and Stafford could not be more different in terms of him and Bryce Perkins. And so I don't think McVay would waste that opportunity if it presented itself.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the rest of the offense. So we'll kind of talk about the playmakers, as it were. So your running backs, receivers, we kind of put them all into one big gumbo pot here. I think the big thing for me is the Alvin Kamara situation. Yeah. So is the expectation, or from your, and I'm not holding your feet to the fire here, but
yeah, of course.
What would you expect? Are we thinking Kamara's not back in 2026? Is it maybe a restructure? Is it some form of that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that indicates that he wouldn't be back in 2026. Okay. The one thing is that he has a lot of non-guaranteed money creating a large base salary. So I could see a potential conversation around, hey, last year Cam Jordan had a similar situation and they flipped a lot of that money to incentives, and then he went and earned all of those incentives. You want to try? You know what I mean? Like I could see something like that. Right. But for the most part, they could also just restructure that and then move on with them. Right. But as of right now, I don't think that there's really any indication that they plan at the time that we're recording this, that they plan to move on from him by any stretch, especially because like just 2 years ago, he had statistically one of his best seasons outside of scoring production with Clint Kubiak. And so finding a good run game for him is not impossible at this point. He will have some questions to answer just because of injury stuff over the course of the past couple of years. But, things might look a lot different in 2026 if the run game is operating a lot better.
And him coming back would not preclude the Saints from draft, the draft addressing the position. Obviously they've tried a couple times, Devin Neal, Kendre Miller. They've, so something to keep an eye on. I know, I think it was Nick Underhill was reporting, or I think this is where I saw it, that Olave, they're working on an extension for him. There was some report came out today about the Browns calling about Chris Olave, and it's like, okay, sure. I'm sure it was a short conversation.
Call.
Yeah, the phone call's free, I guess. But assuming that Chris Olave's, which is probably a safe assumption, he's going to be back and they'll get an extension worked out, or however that goes down. Behind him at receiver, obviously Valet showed some promise during the season, and I heard. I apologize, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Daniel Jeremiah, maybe even, who said, from what he's heard from folks within the Saints organization, they're really high on Valet and what he could possibly bring to that offense moving forward. So obviously, I would say playmakers on offense is a need, as you mentioned. Let me just think before I ask this question. Okay. Where do you think that they might subsidize that? Is that going to come probably from the draft, or is that free agency, a combination of both?
Yeah, I could see a combination of both. Like, I think that there's a lot of excitement around unknowns right now behind those two guys, right? Jalen Polk is an incredibly talented player, could be a big time hidden gem for this team, but didn't play in 2025. And that's usually not a recipe for success moving forward, right? And so if he can defy that, that's great news for him. That's great news for the New Orleans Saints. Trey Palmer, similarly, didn't get a lot of opportunity in New Orleans last year, had that injury that effectively ended his season early. And then you've got new faces like Damian Alford coming over from the Canadian Football League. You have guys like Dante Pettis and Ronnie Bell and Samori Toure and all this. It's not a room right now filled with multiple sure things, right? You have two sure things. And so because of that, I could see the Saints going into free agency and bringing in players at the competition level, the Calvin Austins of the world. But then I could also see them going into the draft. And if at pick number 8, the best player available on the board is Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon. I mean, those guys, and that's of course assuming that they're satisfied with Jordan Tyson's medical stuff, because that's always going to be the big question mark around him. I could see them going draft, but it's also an incredibly deep position wide receiver in this year's class. And this class offers every kind of wide receiver you can imagine. You want the big-bodied split end that can attack all three levels. They have it. You want the big-bodied split end X receiver that can, operate in the short and intermediate areas and be a good possession guy for you. You got it. You want the yards after catch threat. It's there. You want the slot specialist. It's there. There's just every kind of wide receiver is in this draft class. So I could certainly see the Saints going in both directions, not just one. But I do think that they will go both of those directions, that you will see additions in free agency, and that for the second year in a row, because the Saints tried to do this last year, they went after guys like Tesla, as well as Savion Williams. Like, they were pursuing these wide receivers in the draft, but the Lions traded up ahead and took Tesla. The Packers got Williams and all that. And so I think that with all that to say, Paul, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but
no, please go.
I do think that it's a deep enough position, and that it's a position that has a large enough question marks, or ample enough question marks, for New Orleans in terms of what they already have in the room, that I could see them addressing it in multiple ways.
Yeah, and I think to forward that to the tight end position, I mean, obviously Juwan Johnson came on. I think he and Shuck obviously have a rapport.
Right.
But, wouldn't hurt to have another tight end in the room. I mean, obviously Foster Moreau is he a free agent, or is he?
His contract voids on March 10th, and then you have two free agents that contribute at tight ends as well, in Jack Stoll and Taysom Hill.
Right.
So,
and of course, Taysom Hill, of course, another great Saint. And then obviously that might be something they look at in the draft as well. I know there's a couple of tight ends that I'll be keeping my eye on here come combine. So let's transition to the offensive line. So obviously, it feels like Banks on the left side, Fuanga on the right side. Feels like the Saints are good there, at least for the foreseeable future. Interior, a little bit of a different story. To be kind. Obviously, Cesar Ruiz. There's talks about Saints possibly moving on from him. Eric McCoy is a great center when he's healthy. And then the right guard, I can't even remember who played right guard.
Well, you had left guard. Ruiz,
left guard.
Left guard. You had Trevor Penning there, and then it was Dylan Radins, and then it was Trevor Penning again, and then it was Dylan Radins after they traded Penning, and now both those guys are effectively out, right? Dylan Radins could potentially be back, but I do think you want a new starter at that position. And then obviously the
Luke Fortner stepped in for McCoy and played admirably, I would say. So I would hope that the Saints try to bring him back, at least, to shore that up. Obviously, again, we talk about the draft. So we did a live watch along last year for the draft. And when the Cowboys were up, before we went live, Brandon said, if they draft an offensive lineman in the first round, I might quit the show midstream. So, of course, here comes number 12 pick or whatever they were picking, and it's Tyler Booker, and he goes, well, I guess that's it. So I'm thinking I might have the same philosophy this year at number 8. Like, no offense to the offensive linemen that are available in this draft, but if it's the kid from Miami, or if it's that's the one offensive lineman that I know is
and there's the
highly
other,
ranked.
Spencer Fano.
Oh, Fanu from Utah. Yeah. So, like, if it's one of those, I might be like, Brandon, you might have to take it from here. Again, no disrespect, but it's enough already. We need some juice on the offensive side of the ball. Let's flip it over to the defense. So obviously, I think the biggest surprise for me from last season was Brandon Staley's defense down the stretch and how well they played. Specifically, Chase Young. I mean, that's why you signed Chase Young. Like, the last 5 games of the season, especially, like, I'm thinking of like the Tennessee game where he just manhandled Cam Ward and like took the ball from him. I'm thinking of like there was a sequence I think in the Atlanta game where on back-to-back plays he just blows up the play. And and he just looked engaged. He looked ready to, like he was playing for something, And so obviously big piece going forward. Cam Jordan, I say coming toward the end of his career, but I've been saying that for
who knows
for 5 years. Yeah, he obviously. I mean, I'm sure you saw his comments. He obviously thinks that they can go for a long run coming up here. But I mean, what's he going to say? Like, what's he going to say? Like,
well, he could say nothing. You know what I mean?
He could say nothing.
I mean, he could say, got a lot of confidence in what we're building or whatever. But hats off to Cam, man. Cam has never been somebody that didn't believe in where he was at. And I think that's why he wants to be here. I think that's why he's always wanted to be here.
Yeah. And then I think a guy I'm kind of keeping my eye on for year 2 for him would be Vernon Broughton, who so Brandon, my co-host, who's along with being a Cowboys fan, is also a University of Texas alum. So he obviously was familiar with Broughton. He kind of his eyebrows kind of raised when the Saints made that pick last year. So I think defensive line wise, I feel much better again where we are this year than where we were a year ago. Yeah. Obviously, they could still supplement it.
Sure.
If they get to that number 8 pick, I know I've seen mock drafts with David Bailey. I've seen mock drafts with Reese. Reese isn't making it to 8, I don't think. But
I don't think so either.
That's just my
fun.
It'd be a hell of a time. There was one. It was Bain. Reuben Bain today was asked about playing with Chase Young, and he seemed to like the idea. So I mean, that would be fun too. But I think one of the bigger questions on defense is Demario Davis. Looks like he is open at least to potentially going elsewhere. There's an obvious connection with the Bears, with Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator. I've heard Pete Werner trade rumors. So feels like on defense, the kind of position in the most potential flux is linebacker. Do you see it that way, or is that?
Yeah, I could certainly see it that way. I think like losing Demario Davis is the big thing, though. I don't know that Pete Werner gets traded. I think that's mostly
smoke.
No. Yeah. And those aren't rumors coming from like insiders. Those are rumors that are coming from articles where people have a job to detail 32 possible trades or one possible trade that each team can make, kind of a thing, and then that comes off to some people as a report when it's not a report. It's a thought exercise or a thought experiment. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like that's what the off season's about. The off season's about playing out scenarios, even mock drafts. Like mock drafts that people are doing, including myself in February, are not intended to be predictive. They're intended to introduce you to prospects that maybe you didn't think about as fits and where players are and how the boards are changing and all these other things. And so it's just part of what the off season is. But I do think that like linebacker is one of those spots that could see a lot of flux. I think the biggest thing, though, is a Demario Davis question. Now, Demario has made it clear that he would be open to pursuing other opportunities, as well he should. Like, he needs to pursue other opportunities. Like, that's a big part of going into free agency, for the first time in a while, is getting the chance to do something like that. And so I'll be interested to see what happens here, but I do know that the Saints are very high on Danny Stutzman. I know that, they started to carve out that role for Isaiah Stallbird there as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talk about another position in the draft and in free agency that has a lot of talent, linebacker. It's yet another one. And so, Saints could be in a good situation there to have the talent pool with which to address if there are losses there. But obviously, like the loss of Demario Davis is so much more than a loss of just a linebacker,
Absolutely. I told Brandon on the show a couple weeks ago, I have 3 Saints jerseys. I have a Breeze, I have a Sproles, and I have a Demario Davis, like long sleeve shirt jersey kind of thing.
Jersey. I love a jersey.
Jersey, sure. Yeah. so that'll tell you how much I love what Demario Davis has brought. The New York Jets, man, just sending the Saints great linebackers over the years.
I'm saying.
I'd love to see
I thought for a little while that, what was his name? There was another linebacker there for many years that he hit free agency, and I was like, oh, could be another one and everything. He ultimately ended up signing elsewhere, but it's always a team that I'm looking at, and it's like, who are they shedding?
And I remember when we signed Demario Davis, I was on a podcast that was hosted by a Jets fan, and I said, hey, what can we expect? He goes, I don't expect too much. He didn't really start that much. I was like, all right, whatever. And here we are, 5 years later, 6 years later, whatever.
I'll tell you a funny story. I talked to Demario about that transition, and he talked about how he was talking about finished products during a press conference. And so he was talking about becoming a finished product and how teams he didn't get that opportunity to become a finished product, but he got that opportunity to show that he was a finished product by the time that he got to New Orleans. And so I asked him off to the side, I was like, what was it about the time in New Orleans? Because I kind of misunderstood what he said. And I asked, what was it about your arrival in New Orleans that helped you refine yourself to the point where you became that finished product that you were talking about? And he goes, no, I was the finished product when I arrived in New Orleans. I just didn't get a chance to show it until I was in New Orleans. And I was like, wow, like that's a really, really good point. Like we always like to talk about how development's nonlinear in the NFL. And sometimes, not everybody does, goes just on like a straight 45-degree angle upwards. Sometimes it's a roller coaster, and for DeMario, it was, I would say probably it was neither of those things. That it wasn't really a roller coaster, but it certainly was not a 45-degree angle upwards, especially with all the sort of changing environments that he had. And so when he hit that final mark, it was in time for him to arrive in New Orleans as a finished product. And man, did New Orleans benefit from that, because he completely changed defense in the Crescent.
He became the Breeze of the defense. He honestly
really did.
Like
and to your point, once Breeze left, there's a reason why you have that Breeze jersey and that DeMario jersey, because he became the heart and soul of the team in terms of leadership and the way that Drew was. And so like DeMario should go down as an all-time great Saint.
For sure.
Hands down.
His spot in the ring of honor should be there for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious to see, man, from 2006 on, there's a lot of Ring of Honor guys. I wonder what they're going to do.
Yeah,
like, I'm so curious because you gotta, that's precious space. There's only so much to the ring,
right.
And so I'm real curious.
You have to put it outside in the foyer in the
right.
When you first walk in.
Hang some under names or something like that. Like you're gonna have to have names stacked on top of names. I'm real curious to see how that goes.
They'll have to figure that out. So one of the names at linebacker, I'll just mention him quickly for the draft, is Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. Yeah. Okay. All right. I wanted to see what your reaction was. And we know the Buckeye pipeline to the Saints over the years. Obviously, Von Bell, Michael Thomas. The list goes
Marshall
on.
Lattimore.
Ted Ginn, kind of.
Yeah.
But another Buckeye, as we transition to the secondary, is Caleb Downs, who I'm going to ask the question this way, because I've seen this from different places. If we get to the draft night and we get to the number 8 pick, and Caleb Downs is there, Jeremiah Love is there, and one of the receivers is there, so either Lemon or Tate or one of them, is it Love? Is it between Love and Downs at that point, or like how do you see at this? I mean, look, I know it's February 25th when I'm asking this question.
Yeah. But we're playing scenarios. That's what we're talking about.
We're playing
scenarios.
What
the off season's all about.
We're playing.
I think so. I think Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs are the two best players in the draft. Period. Full stop. And so I think that it comes down between those two. I think that running back is probably a little bit deeper, but the drop off from Jeremiah Love to the next guy is a considerable one. Although the next guy, Jadarian Price, his teammate, is also really good. Jonah Coleman, who is the other guy that's kind of in the running for RB2, as it were, out of Washington, also really good. So it's going to depend on like where the Saints would go in that situation would fully depend upon maybe, you work out these draft scenarios sometimes. And so teams will do things like evaluate this player at 1 or in round 1 and the pairing of this player in round 2, and then swap the positions and look at the different types of pairings and things like that. It's something we do on on Locked on Saints.
Yeah, I was going to say you've done a couple of those scenarios type episodes.
Those are actual part of the draft process. It's not the entire draft process, but part of the draft process conversations that happen among scouts and teams and things like that. And so I think it would depend upon how those thought exercises have worked out in the past as they were leading into there. But I would imagine that the default there would be between those two guys, and maybe moves in free agency might end up dictating that. Like, let's say Alontae Taylor's back, then maybe
that was going to be, yeah.
Then maybe the Caleb Downs acquisition isn't as valuable all of a sudden as the Jeremiah Love acquisition would be, right? But then if the Saints go and they sign, let's just go crazy, Travis Etienne or Kenneth Walker III, they won't. But if they did, if they did, then obviously Jeremiah Love in the first round becomes less likely. It becomes less likely than waiting to add to the position as opposed to finding somebody at the top end of the position. So that free agency market would kind of play into it. I think if you went into it the way that the Saints are right now, even if they lost Alontae Taylor, I would argue that the addition of Jeremiah Love might be more valuable in that is a position that needs additions in its present and for its future. Whereas going into corner, if you don't get Caleb Downs, but you end up with Keontae Scott out of Miami or D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana, you're probably happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you also have the best home run hitter, big play generator in this year's draft. So that's kind of my thinking around it as of right now.
Yeah. I know a lot of Saints fans were disheartened by the Breece Hall news coming out of the combine today, which I'm kind of like you. I like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker. I was kind of like, that's not happening.
Those are
ATN maybe, like that's a maybe, but we'll see. My concern about Jeremiah Love is the Chiefs are going to pull what they did with Mahomes back in 2017, which is they're just going to jump us.
Yeah,
and
listen, I got to tell you, it's one thing to draft a running back in the top 10, which I don't think is a bad thing when you have talents like Jeremiah Love, Ashton Genty last year. Jahmyr Gibbs was not top 10, but could very well have been the top 10 guy, right? Bijan, right? When you have those guys, it makes perfect sense to stick and pick at running back. Trading up and leveraging future draft assets for that position in the first round inside the top 10, go right ahead. You know what I mean? Like, be my guest. Yeah. You know,
if you're the Chiefs and you're sitting there and it's like, well, Mahomes is going to be back. Well, we assume he's going to be back and healthy, and they might be a little, closer than the Saints are in terms of like, where the ceiling might be for the season. But yeah, no, I'm with you, and I'm sure Brandon would agree with me too. He was. Because I think I floated this idea for him because the Cowboys, obviously, running back's been kind of a need position for them for a little bit. Obviously, they just re-signed Javonte Williams. But I floated this idea. I was like, well, how would you feel if the Cowboys traded up for Love? And he goes, not great. He's like, I prefer we keep our 2 first-round picks. Thank you very much. And let's
And that's a really important thing. Like, trading from 9 to 7 is not a cheap leap. It does not matter that that's 2 picks. You know what I mean? Right. That team, that would be the Commanders. Oh, and then never mind. I was thinking Cowboys. I was saying, and then you're trading within the division. No, it would be the Chiefs.
No.
For a team like the Commanders who know, okay, well, you're clearly trying to get ahead of the Saints for this player. So you're going to have to pay the premium because we know what you're doing. It's just, go for it. Feel free. In fact, this is, here's what I'll say. It's a little controversial. If I'm the Saints and Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, and one of the top receivers is on the board, and the Chiefs call me and offer to move up 1 spot to get the guy that they want in place so that I don't take the guy that they want, depending on what they're offering, I'm inclined to say yes. Because if it comes with an extra first-round pick in the future year, sure. Yeah, happy to do it. I'll take the L, and then I'll take the best player available after that. No problem.
But I was going to ask what the chances are of Saints trading back, but I know that they're not great. That's
2007. It's been nearly 20 years.
Well, there you go. Maybe Mickey is maybe he's going to turn over a new leaf.
Maybe it's time.
Or an old leaf. So you mentioned Alontae Taylor, so I just want to touch on him real quick because I know been a lot of talk about him, at least within Saint circles, of like because he posted something on Instagram about getting paid, and you know how it is. So what do you think his market value is?
It's tricky.
Right now?
It's tricky because if a team is willing to pay him to be an outside corner, then his market value is north of $20 million. If teams are not willing to pay him to be an outside corner, then his market value is at the least 15 to 17, probably. And so like, it's not a wide margin in terms of what it is that his market would look like, but it changes pretty drastically if he ends up going to an outside role. It's one of the reasons why I think if I'm Alante's representatives and I'm his team, I'm telling him, go to the open market, see what people are willing to give you, and see if anyone's willing to give you an outside cornerback role and outside cornerback money. And
so the situation that this reminds me of is Mark Ingram, when Mark Ingram left the Saints to go to, was it Baltimore at the time?
Yes.
So it reminds me of, like, I think at that time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like Ingram felt his market value was a little higher, and it turned out he was, and the Saints were kind of like, okay, Mark, but that's fine. We'll just move on with Alvin and I forget who they ended up signing.
Latavius Murray.
Oh, that's right. Latavius Murray, of course.
Of
course.
And that worked out. So, but then Mark ended up back with us, for that run that ended with the NFC Championship game we don't talk about. So, but I feel like this is a similar situation where, like, Alante is going to go out to the market and his value is not going to be quite what he and maybe his representation thinks it is. Now, that doesn't mean he's just come crawling back to the Saints. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. That's my gut feel. Could very well happen. I will say that before the Indianapolis Colts traded for Sauce Gardner, they were interested in Alante, and that would have put him in that outside cornerback role. So that could be a big part of why the representation team would do the good job of saying, hey, look, we already know that there's interest in you from this perspective in putting you outside and giving you that opportunity. And so that might be the one separating factor that makes it, instead of a Mark Ingram situation, makes it a Caden Ellis situation, right? There's another role with a better paycheck and a different defense. And so that would be the one thing that I would highlight about that, is that little wrinkle, that little piece of intel could inform them of that decision a little bit more than maybe Mark Ingram and his folks were informed.
So one of the points of contention with my co-host, it's not Caden Ellis. It's obviously, as a Cowboys fan, he hates the Eagles. So anytime Zach Bond makes any kind of play at all, I get a text. I get the text like, you guys just had to let him go, didn't you? I was like, we couldn't find playing time for him. He was special teams. He had to, whatever. So, well, anyway. So I'm sorry. I had to
no, it's a perfect
include that from my co-host. Example. But all that to say is, I if Alante does leave, I just hope he doesn't go to the Eagles and becomes like
right.
Just for my sake, for the sake of this show.
I think honestly, like, one of the big places that will look to court him might be the Tennessee Titans. They have a lot of money to spend, so they can give that money. They need an outside corner. He's from the Tennessee area. It could be that they could use all of that to help court him to the Titans, and he would have a role there for sure.
And Gus Bradley is the DC there. Obviously, he's a big fan of corners from the Legion of Boom days. So I mean, Alante. So I told this to Brandon, and I'm welcome to criticism on this take. I feel like the Saints looked at Alante kind of like the Seahawks looked at Dante Witherspoon, but Alante's not that. All due respect, Alante's not like we saw what Devon Witherspoon did in the Super Bowl. Alante's not quite that. I'm not saying he can't be that, but it just doesn't. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense or if that's
it does. It's
off kilter.
It's a little bit of a different role, but I do think that there's value in that, right? Like, you rush the passer, you help defend the run, you play in space, and you cover. Like, you got to do a little bit of everything in that, what we would call the star role. And look, the Saints wanted Jaquan Brisker. He went one pick before the Saints picked. Jaquan Brisker would have been in that same role. It wouldn't have been the star position in Dennis Allen's defense, but it would have been sort of that slot. I mean, look at the way that the Bears and Dennis Allen use Jaquan Brisker now, right? Saints fans got to all too aware of that because he was incredibly disruptive in that game in Chicago with the Saints, and so or against the Saints, and so like that's another one of the comparisons that I would use too. Was the way that Dennis Allen uses Jaquan Brisker, that's the way that they viewed Alontae Taylor when they made that selection for him, and Dennis Allen was the guy at the time.
Yeah. It's great call. So at corner, so let's say let's operate under the scenario. Again, we're just playing scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say Alontae does walk. So then at corner, right now we'd have Kool-Aid, obviously, and why am I blanking on the other corner? Quincy Riley. Mm-hmm. Quincy Riley, yeah. And then you have Howden in the backfield, or in the safety slot. You have Justin Reed back there. Who am I missing?
Be Sanker, and then I would also include
Sanker, yeah.
And then I would also include Julian Blackmon in that equation too.
Julian Blackmon, of course, they just re-signed Julian Blackmon. Mm-hmm. That's right, because he was injured, right? He got injured
after the first game. It's
that's right,
because he had such a good game, and then he went home, and he was like, "Oh man, my shoulder hurts a little bit." And then he went home, and then he woke up the next morning, and he was like, that shoulder still hurts. And then he went back in the next day and they were like, there you go. And that's the way the cookie crumbled for him.
Tough.
It stunk because he was so tough. Good.
How could I forget about Jonas Sanker, the Jalen Hurts doppelganger?
Yes, right.
So I do feel like this defense. So a couple of seasons ago, one of the things about the Saints was, this defense is old and they've got all these older players very quickly. Especially if that number 8 pick ends up being a Sonny Styles or a Arvell Reese or a Caleb Downs. Now it's like, the Saints defense is a little bit on the younger side, So, and if Staley, I'm kind of surprised. Were you surprised that Staley didn't get any head coaching, at least like considerations? Or
yeah, a little bit. I thought he was going to at least get an interview.
Me too. Yeah.
I was so I was a little bit surprised by that, but then at the same time, like it makes sense. Like people are going to want to see, okay, can you do it again and everything? Right. It's not unusual for something like that to happen. And I was thinking when it came to Brandon Staley, I was like, oh well, it's 2 years, but he's really only been a DC for 1 year. He was the associate head coach or assistant head coach, whichever position it was that he held over at San Francisco. So he was kind of out of the limelight in that situation. But boy, did he step into it in 2025. Yeah. So good for him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a pleasant surprise. The other thing I'll mention with the coaching staff, I wanted to mention this we were talking about earlier. I find it nice as a Saints fan that 2 of our offensive assistants, Tolzien and Haslett, were in heavy consideration for the Steelers OC job and said, you know what, Mike McCarthy, appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to stay in New Orleans. So that makes me feel really good because obviously they were wanted, and 2, they're like, "Now we're building something here. Let's see where this goes." Especially Tolzien, who obviously works directly with Tyler Shuck in the quarterback room, and Brandon knows him. I believe he was a Cowboys assistant.
He was, He actually worked both Haslett and Tolzien worked with McCarthy in Dallas.
Oh, right, because that's where. Well, and obviously Haslett's father hired McCarthy all those years ago. As the OC, as the OC. So, Ross, you've been so kind with your time. Just got a couple more questions, and then we'll send you on your way here. Want to go to some non-football stuff, just for a little fun questions. So we like to ask our guests, what have you been watching or listening to lately? Favorite movie, TV show, music? When you're not looking at when you're not looking at tape, when you're not grinding tape, what's up? What's the
my passion outside of sports is food. Okay. I love to cook, and therefore I love to watch a lot of things that have to do with cooking. So I am a Gordon Ramsay aficionado.
Okay.
Any show that he does, I watch, with the exception of MasterChef Junior, just because I can't stand to see kids disappointed. And so I know he doesn't yell at the kids.
Fair enough.
I know he doesn't yell at the kids, but like I'm a big softie. And so if like one of those kids, the cake falls down or something like that, and that kid loses it, I'm going to lose it. So I can't watch that. I'm too empathetic, but and also too pathetic. And so Next Level Chef, Master Chef, Hell's Kitchen, all of them. I'm watching all that.
Okay.
So I love that. My wonderful, wonderful life partner and I have also gotten very much into a lot of the like Korean and Chinese dramas and comedies on Netflix. We love it. The stories are so like fantastical. They remind me of like the telenovelas that my family used to watch when I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah.
And so like, I love all of that. So those are kind of the big things that I've been listening, or that I've been watching. Listening to has been, oh man, I'm all over the place on what I listen to. So hard to pin anything down. So I'll just kind of say like, yes, I don't really have, I have a favorite genre. You know, I'm a hip hop and rap guy. It's what I grew up on and everything like that. But I don't really have anything that I won't listen to. So I listen to a whole bunch of different music. And then podcast wise, because I try to get out of the football podcast realm every now and then just to palate cleanse. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. And
I love it.
I love that show. I love a good interview. And he's the best. And I can't remember what his show's name is, if I'm being entirely honest, but Trevor Noah's got a great podcast as well. And so those are the other ones that I'll listen to a
lot. My favorite pastime is if I'm just needing some background noise, I will go to YouTube and just click on a Conan O'Brien, because he does the segment. They'll post just the segments, and I'll just let that sucker just go and just I've heard some of them like 100 times, and I don't care. I'll just keep going.
Before I was working in sports journalism, I was working in theater, and Conan is one of those guys that, you know, I was doing like theater at an extremely high level on Broadway, and then I was doing theater at an extremely high level in Los Angeles as well. And so Conan is somebody that like we tapped once for contributions to a show. He did some recorded stuff for us and things like that. I never got the opportunity to meet him, but I knew a lot of the people around him, or knew a lot of people that knew him. And I cannot think of a single negative thing that has ever been said about that man.
Yeah.
He has always received nothing but heaps of praise from everyone that I've known that I knew personally, that knew him personally. And I love that, because there are so few people like that in the world. It feels in that world. I mean, in that world it feels like there are so few. And so, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. His podcast is definitely on my, my list. It's every Monday is, Conan O'Brien Day for me. So, definitely. So real quick, if we could transition back to football just real quick, because there was a couple other things I just wanted to ask. So with the Combine coming up this week, I know you were not able to get to Indianapolis, but who are some guys, let's take the Saints out of it for a second. Who are some guys you're looking forward to, maybe under the radar guys, that you're looking forward to seeing how they perform this week?
Look, I consider Sonny Styles an under the radar guy, the linebacker out of Ohio State. He might be a top 10 pick, top 15 pick, but I consider him an under the radar guy because he's an off ball linebacker, and people don't typically think of off ball linebackers as premium guys. And so I think that he's definitely one to watch, because he runs and does all of his stuff on Thursday, the first day of workouts. And I think he's going to destroy the Combine. So he's one that I'll be watching. Bud Clark out of TCU, I think he's a safety. I think he's going to test extremely well. Brennan Thompson, the wide receiver out of Mississippi State. I'm looking over here because this is the direction I look at when I'm trying to pull things from my memory.
You're good.
That's where I visualize. Brennan Thompson, I think, is going to be the fastest guy at the Combine. He's probably going to run in the 4.2s. I think Chris Brazell, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, is like 6'3", 6'4", but he's going to run way better than I think people think he's going to run. I'm not saying he's going to be a 4.3 guy, but like at his size, when he runs, if he runs in the low 4.2s, that's going to create quite the conversation around him. I hope, I don't know yet, but I hope that Ruben Bain as well as Akeem Messidor, both of the Miami edge rushers, do something at the Combine, because if either one of those guys shows really positive or plus movement ability at 6'3", 270, 6'3", 265, that's going to be big for both of those guys. And so those are a few that stand out. If Michael Trigg jumps, I want to see how high. So like
who's this?
Michael Trigg is the Baylor tight end who's like 6'3", 240. He is a jump ball dude. It's just kind of what he does. And so I'm pretty excited to see him too. He might not be.
Saints had one of those once upon a time.
Right.
Had a guy once. But so okay. And then do you have any kind of hot take, bold prediction, I'll call it, for the off season? Again, it doesn't have to be Saints related. It could be any, something that you're looking at, some storyline that you're kind of following.
Yeah. I'm sure I can come up with something. Let me think about it.
I do. I will say, go ahead.
Chris Olave is going to, if he gets his extension, it's going to be north of $35 million. It's going to be $35 million or more. There's no way, this is my opinion. There's no way that he gets less than what Garrett Wilson got an entire almost calendar year ago, coming off of a better season than he came off of at his extension. There's no way that he gets less than $32.5 million. I'd be shocked. And if Chris Olave does take an extension that is less than $32.5 million, he should receive a lot of thank you letters.
Yeah, I mean, and Olave is another guy. I'm really impressed by the bounce back season he had. I mean, obviously you've talked about on your show. I mean, a year ago this time he was questioning whether he wanted to play football at all, and now, obviously coming off a great season, looks like he and Shuck are in sync. I mean, Shuck is he's just a breath of fresh air for New Orleans. Can we just say
really
that? I mean, he's not Breeze. I'm not.
No.
I'm not. Yeah. No, he's not that. I'm not going that far. But like, it's just seeing him interact with media, local media and national media. It's like this guy gets it. Like he understands kind of like what you were talking about at the beginning, like what this team means to the city and what he as a representative of that team should be. So I obviously I hope he does well because he's the quarterback of the team, but I think I would be rooting for him anyway, honestly.
Yeah.
Like if he were, maybe if he wasn't the Falcons quarterback, but if he was.
Sure. Yeah. Understandable. Just genuinely warm guy, type of dude that knows everybody's name, type of dude that addresses you by your name, type of dude
that's,
you know what I mean? He just does all the little things that make a difference. Some people would say don't matter. Other people would say very much matters, all these other things. You know how it goes. But like, he's just one of those people that so far has just done everything that he can intentionally to go above and beyond. Got to keep it up. Got to bring the success on the field. And he knows that. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most impressed by is that he knows that he's doing the right things because he's constantly told, right? We constantly tell him, you're doing the right things. Like he knows he's doing the right things, but but he's not resting on those laurels. He also consistently says like, I still got to get it done on the field though, and I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of Saints fans are going to start to see a little bit more, that he is a guy that knows, I'm making all the right moves, but also holds himself to a standard of heightening that every chance that he gets.
One last, I promise this will be the last one, but
you're fine, buddy. You're good.
One last receiver. What do you think of the possibility of Chris Bell reuniting with Tyler Shuck?
That's such a good one, man.
I don't know much about him, honestly.
He's incredible after the catch. He's Deebo Samuel-esque in that he is a guy that his yards after catch ability is because of how physical is just as much about how physical he is as it is about how elusive he can be. He is like 6'2", 223, something like that. Like he's just that kind of like compact runner with the football in his hand. He's very well distributed in terms of weight and mass and strength and all these things. And he's just a strong reliable pass catcher. He would be so remarkably unique to what it is that the Saints have in the room. The question is medical, right? Are you going to be able to be back, and when are you back, and can you maintain what you're doing when you are back, and all those other things? You have to ask the medical questions about him, just like you have to ask the medical questions about Jordan Tyson at this moment, right? And all those things. But like, if you feel good about where that is, or heck, if you feel good about where you are in that room otherwise, to where you can make a long-term investment and say, you know what, kind of like how the Lions did with Jameson Williams, where they were so confident in that wide receiver room as it was, and it was led by, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they had other pieces and all that. And then they brought in Jameson Williams and knew they weren't going to see him for the first 9 games a year, 7 games a year, whatever it was. If you're comfortable doing that and giving him the opportunity to make sure that he is fully recovered and then conditioned after recovering, I think he'd be a worthwhile investment as high as day 2.
Cool. I just thought of another question and then I lost it. It was probably going to be, I know what it was. So we had Locked On Cowboys host Landon McCool.
Landon. Yeah.
Last year, prior to the season. So apologies, you are the second Locked On host that we've had on the show. But
I'd be happy to be second to Landon anytime.
And well, the funny thing was, it was mostly him and Brandon, and I was just kind of sitting there like, Dak Prescott's pretty good, right? But I asked him this question, so I'll turn around on you. If there was one Cowboy player that you have free reign to pluck from the Cowboys and put him on the Saints, who would that be? I have a pretty good idea who would it be, but maybe you'll surprise me.
Yeah. I might.
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to say I have a pretty good idea of who I would pick.
Yeah,
but you might surprise me.
I got 2 guys, one of which is chalk, right? CeeDee Lamb.
That would have been my
Yeah, but I'll go for the. I'll just bring up the other one. I think Deron Bland is really talented.
Yeah.
And, I don't know that I'd want his contract. I think he's 22 and a half, something like that. I don't know if I'd want his contract, but just to add another really
I don't think Brandon wants it either, to be honest with you.
But to add another really strong corner into that room that feels like he's kind of playing outside of his scheme right now in Dallas, and maybe could play a little bit more in his pocket in New Orleans. I think he's a pretty talented guy when he's asked to do what it is that he's great at. And so I would put him up there too, but I think CeeDee Lamb is the easy answer. Yeah. But I don't know that I want his contract either, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, Olave's extension comes a little more tricky if you get CeeDee Lamb.
You're in your own Bengals situation there.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. The other name I would throw out is Quinnen Williams, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's just me. Obviously, Mike. If we were having this conversation this time last year, it would have been Micah. But
yeah.
But that's not possible now.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Quinnen Williams is a really good one.
Yeah. Well, Ross, again, thank you so much for your time. You've been more than hospitable. We appreciate it. Check out Ross. If you are listening to this and you do not listen to Ross Jackson on a daily basis, you are doing something wrong. So please check him out. Locked On Saints. Just YouTube Ross Jackson. You'll find him. He's there. He's there. He's all over the place. So Ross, all the best to you. Hope we can have you on again. Maybe before the season.
Yeah.
Once we get some of these scenarios actually ironed out, and now we kind of have a better picture of what 2026 might look like for the Saints. But yeah, thanks so much. Do you have anything else you want to plug before we head out?
No. I'm not a plug guy. I'm grateful to have been here with you, man. Thank you so much for welcoming me on the show. Thank you for your flexibility as well. And yeah, whenever you guys want, let me know, and I'm more than happy to come back. Thank you for everything.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. And we will talk to everybody next week. Brandon will be back. We'll talk about some combine stuff. We'll go through all that stuff. So until then, happy football, everybody.